Good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Sauer. As Mike just said, I live in a small town in Oklahoma, in Ardmore, Oklahoma. A lot of people might have heard that on the news recently. We just got hit pretty hard by some tornadoes that came through. It was very surreal. It was that night over 20 tornadoes had touched down throughout the southern part of Oklahoma. 3 of them came right through our area. Some very good friends of mine and even some of my employees was affected. One of my gals completely lost her entire home. And I say that so you can, we're always up with the times. We're always, fortunately, in our area, there was no fatalities. There was in Oklahoma, but not right directly where we were at. But it reminds me that I've had several people ask me about that because they knew where I was from. And I've had, and I said, well, it is very surreal. On the other hand, it's so good to come out to California. I grew up on the West Coast, and I love California actually. But it reminds me of my brother just a few years ago lived in Paradise, and very similar scenario. Paradise, California, as you know, the fires came through, and I've lived in Orange County, California for a number of years and experienced a couple of earthquakes. It's everywhere, and but life goes on, and we're here. And the reason I bring all that up is because I want to really congratulate everybody for being here. The fact that you made the decision to come to an event like this and attend and listen to some of the speakers that you'll hear this weekend, and get a chance to speak to some of the companies about various investments, that means you're looking forward and you're the right kind of people. So guys, I applaud you for that. I do want to take just a moment and say thank you and recognize the staff of the Moneyshow itself. If you guys have been to Moneyshow events before, you know what I'm talking about. If you've never been to a Moneyshow event, you're in for a treat. For the next 2 or 3 days, you'll have an opportunity to hear panels and some of the best investment ideas you've ever heard. Now, I want to just tell you what I'm up against here. On my bio, this is what they said. I'm thinking, boy, there's a lot to cover in 30 minutes. But they said, direct investment in domestic oil drilling projects has several key advantages over other ways to invest, either in the energy sector and other investments in general. So there are some advantages, and I want to talk about that. I'll also explain the differences, the tax advantage, the potential profits, exceptional rates of returns, and choosing the right type of project. Now, that's a lot to cover in 30 minutes. So I do want to point out really quick so I don't forget, on the tables that you're looking at right here, you're going to see one of these. This is it's a flyer of my company. The name of the company that I have is Petroleum Industries. Now, in that, on the back right there, it talks about huge potential profits, 100% tax write-off revenue paid monthly. Those are my 3 bullet points, and you're going to hear a lot. If you're talking to one of us, you're going to hear a lot about those 3 bullets right there. Now, you're also going to see right here on a presentation breakout, the things that I'm going to touch on this morning will catch your attention. I'll tell you right now, if you're an investor, you can't not kind of get a little bit excited about what I'm talking about. However, we're going to be going into detail. So right on the back of this, you'll see right here, today at 3:20 over in the Grand Peninsula E, you'll have the opportunity. In fact, let me take just a second really quick. I want to throw your attention this way. Right back here in the back behind you, there's a number of booths, but this one right here in the center, you'll see 3 gentlemen, in fact, now they're standing right there. I would, at some point over the next 2 or 3 days, make it a point to stop by, pick up some information from them, and get to know what it is I'm about to talk about. Whether you've ever had the opportunity to invest directly into an oil project before, or whether you're looking at it for the first time, there's some pretty good stuff here. So let me get started. Let me show you what it is we're talking about. And if you're looking at this for the first time, you're going to have some questions as why you might want to come take a look at this presentation. Now, I got into this business. I started Petroleum Industries in 2016. And one of my biggest drivers, and it has been for years before that, because I invest in a lot of different things, but I will say that my biggest driver is what you see up here on the screen right here. Warren Buffett said, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Well, one of the bullet points that we talk about is monthly paid revenue. And I'll tell you, that's a big driver for the oil business. It's not like investing in stock. A lot of people have got investments in oil. They believe because they've invested in ExxonMobil or Chevron and various different things. And you're watching the stock go up and down, and it's got very little effect. But when you directly invest into energy, specifically oil and gas exploration, that's a big difference, because the Internal Revenue Service right now says that if you invest into domestic oil drilling, you can write off 100% of that investment. And that's a huge advantage. And we're going to go into detail on that. In fact, there's more advantages than just that one. However, let me go on, because I've got a lot of things to cover over the next few minutes, and then we'll kind of allude to where, for those of you who are intrigued with this, I'd love to get together with you and meet you and speak with you and have you speak with one of my individuals back here. You're going to like it. So let me get started. To help introduce this, I was invited to go onto a deal. A lot of people know Kevin Harrington. He was one of the original founders of Shark Tank. He's got a project now called American Entrepreneur. And I was invited to go on to this program with him. And there's a Q&A here that he explains probably better than I can in such a short time. So I want to share this with you, just a few minutes excerpt from this presentation. So I'm going to start with this, and then I'll continue from there. So let's start with this.
Hi, I'm Kevin Harrington, an original shark from Shark Tank. Founded by a real estate and oil investor, Vertical Petroleum Industries provides its partners with exceptional projects offering exceptional returns. And joining me today is CEO Dan Sauer. Dan, thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the invite.
My pleasure. So you're in an awesome industry, and I just want to know, how long have you actually been in business now?
I started VPI in 2016, but prior to that, I had actually invested in several projects.
Oil and gas?
Oil and gas.
So you've been in oil and gas for the last 7 or 8 years?
Strictly in oil and gas for the last almost 8 years now. Prior to that, my background is more in real estate, finance, but I had invested in a number of oil projects, and that's kind of where I learned that they've got some incredible benefits.
Let's talk about it. I mean, I want to know, why is oil and gas such an attractive opportunity for investors?
Well, primarily 3 things is usually what most people concentrate on. One is, because I invest in oil fields, I don't invest in large companies like Exxon or Chevron. By investing in oil fields, the returns can be spectacular. The biggest thing probably that gets a lot of people's attention is the tax advantages. The IRS has a code that states that if you were to invest in any domestic energy, specifically oil and gas exploration.
Domestic, right? Because they want to bring it back to the U.S.
And specifically oil and gas exploration. 100% of your initial investment is a write-off.
Oh, wow.
So that's like getting 30% return on your investment back
the
very first year, regardless of what we produce. So that's a huge benefit. And then the last thing is, you're not watching stock going up or down. You're not doing, it's literally monthly revenue. This is a revenue-based investment, which allows, monthly checks, coming home every month.
Do you have to be an operator, or are you an operator in this business?
I'm not. And I was investing with an operator prior to doing this, and I learned that there's some disadvantages to that, actually. An operator typically is the outfit that's out in the field doing all the field work. I'm what's called an oil developer. And an oil developer to the operator is similar to like a land developer with a general contractor. The only problem is with an operator is they have what's called carried interest.
What does that mean exactly?
If you invest with an operator, it's a percentage of the deal that the operator literally takes off the top, causing the investor to literally pay for his portion of his ownership.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes 25, 30% of the deal ends up being owned by and he never puts up any of his own money.
Does VPI have carried interest?
No, they do not.
No, good.
No, what we do is we literally put our funds in the same as our partners. So we pay for our own shares, just like our partners.
Oh, awesome. What do you say to those that don't know much about this industry?
Our paperwork that we'll provide is pretty clear. It's pretty simple to get through. Most of our partners are professionals. They're generally accredited investors or sophisticated. However, they rarely have a background in geology or or petroleum engineering.
Right,
Nor did I.
But you hire those experts,
That's
right?
exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
We
okay.
surround ourselves with some of the best there is.
Yes.
So ultimately, they're coming in for the incredible tax benefits and the profit margins.
Right. So Dan, tell me who your typical partner actually is.
Kev, we have over 200 partners now. Where do I start? They come from every walk in life, from all over the country. They're generally professional. Sometimes they're retired. Sometimes they're working. Mostly Republican. However, I think that if I were going to put a common denominator between every one of our partners, I believe that they have one goal in mind, and that's mailbox money.
Mailbox money. That check in the
Ultimately,
mailbox every
they're
month.
looking to have revenue sent to them each and every month. That's one common denominator, even myself, that we all have as a partners. Okay, so I think the takeaway that I would want to pull from that would be this last one. People refer to it as mailbox money. Now from an investment standpoint, everybody's familiar with the terms, but I will say, I will say that unlike a stock that we have all invested in, and you're investing in, and you're watching the price of that stock go up, when is it that we're actually making the money? When are we actually going to, let it change our lifestyle? When are we going to be able to utilize that for what we want? And so monthly paid revenue is a huge difference in some of the ways that people will invest. So let me go on. In addition to that, we talk about the profit potential and the tax advantages. Let's talk about the tax advantages for a moment. Now, I said earlier that the Internal Revenue Service gives us tremendous advantages, and there's more than just one or two. But the one that is probably the one that gets everybody's attention is the fact that you can write off the initial investment. It's a huge thing. I talk to investors every day that says, literally, Dan, by me taking, some of the stuff that I've got and working for me in other ways, everybody's got to park their money somewhere. Literally, by moving it from here over into the energy sector, specifically in oil and gas exploration, I can make, 30, 35, I'm making a tremendous amount of money back on that, literally just by moving it over there, before we even do any type of production with it at all. So it really helps for the first year's returns. However, again, not unlike Harrington, I've gotten the opportunity to speak in a lot of different environments, and I've got to know some very well-known investors. One of these guys is Robert Kiyosaki. As you know, if you've ever had the opportunity to hear Kiyosaki speak, he's a fun speaker, actually, but if you've ever had, he's a very big proponent of oil and gas, and he's all about taxes. So he was born for this. And he's got a little clip here that I want to play for you. He talks about taxes specifically on the type projects that I've got. Let me share this with you.
Hello, and welcome to the VPI channel. Robert Kiyosaki has been a long-term proponent of investing in oil and gas. Hello, and welcome to the VPI channel. Robert Kiyosaki has been a long-term proponent of investing in oil and gas. Today's featured video is a YouTube classic of Robert discussing oil and gas investing with his CPA. We hope you enjoy.
Tom, one of the reasons I love investing in oil production, I don't invest in oil companies like Exxon or Chevron. I actually invest in oil fields. And one of the reasons I love oil is because of the tax breaks, right? So if I put $100,000 into an oil investment, what happens next?
What happens is you get such a big deduction the first year that it's like the government handing you a check for about $30,000.
So if I put $100,000 in, I get $30,000 back right there.
Immediately.
So that's like a 30% return day one. So that's really what most people do not understand, that the tax laws are really incentives for professional investors. Right?
That's exactly right. And this is true in most countries. While the tax laws vary, like oil and gas, in the U.S., anybody who invests in U.S. oil and gas, no matter where you live, gets that same tax benefit.
So let's say I put $100,000 in, and it's very easy to get a 10% cash return. So the $100,000 I put in, and every year I get $10,000 coming back in. What kind of tax do I pay on that $10,000 in cash flow?
Well, that's the next great thing from a tax standpoint in the U.S. You only pay tax on about 80% of that income.
So we get a tax break because we're doing what the government wants us to do, which is to provide energy and fuel. And oil doesn't just go to gasoline, it goes to fertilizer, plastics, and a whole bunch of building materials. So a civilized country runs on energy. Without energy, civilization would crash. And that's why the government gives us
tax incentives.
One of the other advantages that Robert mentioned there is the small producer's tax credit. So not only can you write off your initial investment, but in addition to that, there's also advantages for the revenue that you make for years to come. It works out to be a net of about 15% on the credit itself of everything that you take in on revenue that's tax-free. And again, there's yet even more. But so it's safe to say that the tax advantages itself are better than any tax. Robert refers to it as the best tax investment that you've ever seen for the last 30 plus years and counting. There's no better tax investment out there. We've established the fact that you can make monthly revenue coming in on a steady basis based on your initial investment. You own a piece of that oil well, and that's new for a lot of people. But from experience, I can tell you, it's when I first got into it, one of my favorite things is, you'd be in a social environment. I say, yeah, well, I own oil wells, and I'll tell you, it's different than investing in stock. And so we know that you get monthly tax revenue, or you get monthly revenue. You know that you get some great tax advantages. Now let's talk about risk factors. Everybody in this room, every investor, all the powers to be, all seem to think that oil is strong right now, and it's staying strong. Wall Street Journal, Morgan Stanley, they say that, everybody seems, well, we know one thing for sure. We know that oil generally rises during the summertime. I think a lot of it has to do with people are out and about and their usage, and gasoline does have an effect on it, but so does travel and everything else. But it usually will go up higher. They anticipate it to be up around $95 for the summertime. Bank of America says that we should, on WTI, we should average about $80 to $85. We used to say it's a good year to be in oil. Now we've changed that to where we say it's a good decade to be in oil. If there was ever a time you would want to probably own oil itself, not stock, but to own oil itself, because it doesn't look like the instability is even anywhere close. So we'll go from there. Now, so if that's the case, now let me talk about the projects that I talk about, or that we're actually doing. Now, particularly impressive is the industry's track record in effectively extracting additional resources from previously discovered older fields. Since 1990, the vast majority of reserve additions in the United States, now get this, 89% of all oil reserve additions and 92% of gas reserve additions have come from finding new reserves in older fields. That means that these companies aren't necessarily going out there and finding new places to go drill oil. They're not looking, now, don't get me wrong, we're all seeing, new projects, they're going offshore, they're doing some stuff, but a strong percentage of oil, in this case, 92% or 89% of all oil reserves are found by going in and hitting older fields. Now, the reason why that is because we know things now that they didn't 100 years ago. Or even 50 years ago. We can go into areas where they didn't know to do it in certain ways or to go down to certain depths, and we can now take advantage of it. I'll show you something that we're currently doing right now. We are working on a project called the Bonanza Development. It's up in Oklahoma. I've done most of my drilling down in Texas. We do Texas and Oklahoma. We're working on Bonanza Development up in Pontotoc County. It's, if you know Oklahoma at all, it's up by Ponca City. If you know where that is, it's up toward northern. Actually, no, I take that back. I have a project in Ponca City. This Ada is where this one is, the city of Ada in Pontotoc County. But the project itself is 1,100 acres, and this lease of 1,100 acres has already yielded 17 million barrels of oil. Now, the reason I say that is because a lot of people might think that The fact that we've already taken 17 million barrels of oil out of this lease, how much more can there be? Well, that's where geologists come in. That's where all the testing comes in. But it even goes better than that. We've got history of the area. We've got history of this particular lease. In this particular lease, we have 13 stacked formations. And if you see those upper ones, here's the crazy thing. It used to be a time when people would drill down and they'd get down to a certain level. When they'd hit oil, they'd produce it and they'd go from there. Well, they did that for years and years and years. They first started drilling on this lease 80 years ago. And it's obviously worked. However, all around this lease, they have drilled down with modern technology. They know that there's a lot more oil in this area in deeper formations. We've got all the down below us in this in these formations in this lease that's never been drilled. So the purpose of me getting this lease was not to go in and buy the production that's already being done, but to go in and drill more projects and go down into these 13 stack formations. These are going to be down into the Hutton and down what we call the Wilcox formations. And we've got a lot of testing and a lot of stuff going in, but this is the project we're working on. And I will say that the numbers look good. We know that the price of oil looks good. The formations that we have look incredible. We know we get great tax benefits. We know the returns can be unbelievable. So let me just say that here's where I'd like to go from here. This is what was going to be the beginning of a flyover video that we have, but I can't get the video to go. So I will just summarize it by saying this. We do about a 30 or 40-minute presentation where we'll give you all the information you can need. We'll talk about the profit potential. How much can you really make on this? What are the risks? You know, a lot of people, I kind of like the idea of oil. I like the tax advantages, but really, what are the risks? I can show you how we've really mitigated those. And it's not like just, you know, flipping a coin and hoping it comes up. Guys, so let me just say this. We're here for 2.5 days. At some point, these three fine-looking gentlemen over here would be happy to give you some information and tell you a little bit about what it is we do. We'd love to have you over to a presentation that we're doing, like I said, today at 3:20. Mark your calendar, look at what it is, see if you can come in. We'd love to have you and show you the details on this. And ultimately, if it does look like something that you would like to consider, we don't expect you to just say, oh, okay, well, we'll try. We would actually like to actually show you what we're talking about. For the people, for our partners that we want to show the projects that we do, we'll fly you out, we'll bring you out, we'll take you out, put boots on and go out and show you what it is we're doing. We'll go through the numbers and go show you a real live oil well. So guys, I'd love to tell you all about it. I'm about out of time. Like I said, we do have a presentation today. On these flyers are our schedules. We'd love to see you. Mike, are we on time? Are we?
Get time for maybe one or two questions if you have any.
If anybody's got a question, I'll be happy to take one or two. I know that I got my 5 minutes over 5 minutes ago. So if anybody has a question, I'll go through one or two real quick. Yes, sir. Of course. Well, I guess maybe I'm not unsure when you say audited. You know, what we have to do is everything is done. We work with gas or the oil purchasers that come in. Those are all on record. We have to keep those on records for all of our partners. And we work with a CPA. We issue K1s every year. And so I guess those are the records. So anybody else?
One over here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sir, thank you for your presentation. And I have a very simple question.
Sure.
Everybody knows that the oil in 2007 or 2008 in June peaked above $140. Now it is at 80 something, closer to 90 maybe. And we know from a simple technical analysis that it can go above 100, maybe 112, 120. If it goes above it, will be this inflation that everybody talks about, and so on. So after this peak, the oil will follow the general rule, like any other stock. Now it will drop, because this is the rule in the market. The market goes up, the market goes down. You have to be there at the right time. So how this investment that you suggest today will behave on the oil price will drop?
That's probably it's a great question, by the way. There was a lot of questions in that. But essentially, the question is, what happens if the oil should drop? It really comes down it depends on the project you're dealing with. There's a number of different ways of operating projects and how you're getting in and the type of projects that you're running. We do all of ours vertical. And I will say that the way that it's done, it has to do with the amount of your what's called lift cost. In other words, if you're running a very lean operation, it doesn't take very much oil to pay for that and make a pretty good profit. We operate, one of the things we're going to go through in this presentation today is we're going to go through the profit potential. And we'll talk about those expenses and what it takes to operate it. Most of our operations, I can tell you, we only have to just do a handful of barrels a month to pay for it. The profit margin starts very, very, very low. And so our lift cost is virtually nothing. And I'll show you how that works. And it's, that's probably the biggest thing I can do, because it's too long, it's too much of it. But the question is, what happens if it drops? We can drop it down to, it could be cut in half, and cut in half again, and we're still running in the black. So we have a lot of variables there that it would take a whole nother section of slides to show you. But I would love to show you that, because the profit margin is why, tax advantages, monthly revenue is great, but the profit margin that's potential here is through the roof. And if you've never looked at it, I would say take a few minutes, come to the presentation, let me show that to you and give you all the information, and I think you'll love what you see. In addition to that, if that's the case, and then we'd like to show you firsthand, show you exactly how all that works. That being said, guys, I'm over on my time. So thank you, guys. I look forward to meeting you back here and hopefully at one of our sessions. Thank you so much.